Hi, it's Money Flow Mel with Black Box Stocks. Just wanted to give everyone an update with some of the phantom prints that we've had on the books, as well as some of the larger um, individual indice signature prints that are coming in a bit larger than we've typically seen before. So we definitely did have a big data release today. And even pre-market, if you look over here to the right, we did have some phantom prints come into SPY. They weren't really far from range. So they came in at 387.07 with spot price at 386.09. That gave you a little less than $1. And that did get hit pre-market, but of course, we had some open levels. If you're a member of Black Box Stocks, you know we've been kind of adding those in and looking for some of that upside. So just wanted to kind of give you some insight with where we are today as far as what we've had that's new, but to also talk about some of the stuff that's open. Because one thing about the phantom prints, and I'm going to go over here now to my personal chart. Because a lot of these have been existing. And as we're going through my individual chart, yellow indicates that we've already hit that level. Orange means that it's open. And so I did add this newer level that we had at 387.07, which we did hit pre-market, but we've had some levels above that are worth kind of mentioning because we did run through a lot of these today. So I'm going to kind of draw your attention over here. We had this 390.13 come in on 11.3. We also had a level that's very old. And so I want to kind of talk about this for a minute. This is from 9/20. We had this 391.68. And this is a very old level, and we did run through and hit this today. I do like to keep any open phantom print levels on my chart. However, I don't like to go outside of range, meaning I prefer to see and stick to levels that are coming in either closer to where we are pricing range, either above or below. And I know that's a little bit confusing because we tend to see both come through, but we'll also notice to where they tend to walk it up or walk it down. Interesting to kind of just go through some of these other levels that we hit today and how that worked with a timing perspective. So anybody that's watching Phantom Prints, I don't want you to think that you get something that's 10 or 15 points out of range and that's something that you're going to hit within the next day or two, because that's absolutely not true. And we also hit a level from 1031, 392.26. That's a lot of time in between when this came in and when this actually hit. And that's the biggest unknown factor. If you are following phantom prints, you just don't know when those are going to hit. So again, on my chart, yellow means they have already hit, orange they have not yet hit. So I haven't gone back yet to kind of denote that these have been hit. Just kind of wanted to show you how many we ran through today. We also had another level from 1031 at 392.87. We ran that. And this is kind of the bigger level we were looking for. This was really our bigger upside target, which was pretty much outreached from what we were looking at from a pricing perspective and where we were staying at current range. They actually hit this twice. So they originally came in on 1025. And if this is something you were following from 1025, this was nothing that was an easy trade. So I really want to like emphasize that. The phantom prints kind of give us some insight up or down. They do tend to act as magnets, but what you don't have is the timing perspective. And that's really vital, especially because we have so much volatility, so much range. I want to really hone this in because they did come back this week on 11/8 and hit this one again, but it was far out of range. So my personal preference is to say closer to pricing range. So I like to see when we have some phantom prints that come in, if we're trading at 390, we get something at 392. There's a a better comfort level there, because especially if you're shorter dated, it becomes really tricky. So let's talk about where we still have some open price targets. We did hit this level after hours. It seems like they've been hitting a lot more of these after hours. And again, a lot more of my BBS crew, I'm talking to you, the ones that have been tracking it. We've been talking about this a lot more. We're kind of updating all the time about those levels. So this has been interesting to follow. But above here, and although I haven't been mentioning it because it was so far out of range when we were trading at 370, why am I going to mention a phantom print up at 396.81? It's just too far out of range, but we are getting closer here, so it's worth mentioning. Back on 1021, we do have an open phantom print. Again, my open levels are in orange at 396.81. And we do actually have a little bit more coming in. 1026, we have 407.74. And on 1031, we have 411.24. So there's still some upside targets, but I really want to emphasize these are very far out of range. After that, we go into some very, very old levels, which I don't like to put as much emphasis on. Yes, I keep them on my chart, but what I like to see is that they come in and give us some new direction, either upside or downside. And of course, we will see that on the Black Box Stocks alert stream with the dark pool activity. So right now I've got everything pulled up. Of course, I can filter and go to just phantom prints. There wasn't much that came through today. Most of that was in the SPY. That was pre-market. We hit that pre-market. But that's where you're going to find that information. And I do keep a very busy chart. I get that often, like, oh my God, that's messy. I know. This is a lot. This is the chart I tend to keep on a 2 or 3 minute chart. So it's very busy. If I really look to kind of track and mark up a chart, I'll pull up a clean SPX chart so I can kind of use those levels. But this is my baby. This is where I keep a lot of this information. So it's hard for me to delete any of this, even though it's extremely noisy and you're looking at this going, oh my God. So let's also talk about some of the other things that I've been seeing that are worth mentioning. While we talk about phantom prints and they tend to be magnets, I really want to talk about some of the larger size that we've seen come in at some of these lower levels. So on 1026, our signature prints. So I do have a individual video that just goes over signature prints, their activity that happened the night before, record to the tape the next day. This is a big level, 1026 at 384.82. We had 19.02 million shares. You usually don't see this kind of size if you outside of an OPEX, an options expiration. Options expiration is when you tend to see the larger size. So to kind of see this, I think this was like a Tuesday or Wednesday, just some size you don't typically see. It's worth noting. And then of course, I've already got another level marked on my chart. We saw that again on 11.2, again with some size. Now, when we talk about phantom prints, they tend to be magnets. It doesn't really matter the size behind that. We've seen where one share has kind of drifted up to that. It could be, a million, one share, it doesn't matter. But when you really talk about getting some really solid levels added to your SPY chart based off of dark pool activity, the bigger levels by price are the ones you want to be paying attention to. And so on 11.2, we had 384.59 with just shy of 19 million shares. And again, we have some size tonight. And so I'm going to just kind of walk you through how I mark up my chart. You can see that my larger size volume is in white because that's really important to me. That's where we have size. And I love to track the phantom prints, but oftentimes those are very low volume. They're not necessarily giving me a lot of insight to where we really have actual volume by price. And so this evening, we've had some size come in. So let me just kind of like scrunch this up a little bit and give you an idea. And this is the same thing I do for even the phantom prints. You can tell I'm pretty detailed. What I'm trying to get is date, price, shares, and spot. So I'm trying to like gather some information and some notes just so that I can go back and go, okay, how long did that take to hit that? All right, well, when they came in, they were really far out of price or they were really close to price. So there's a lot of things I kind of use to kind of data collect because again, we don't really know their intent or what they're doing here. Just like to gain as much information as possible. So this evening, it's definitely worth noting today is 11:10. And the pricing level I'm looking at is 374.13. We had a very high number of signature prints. So collectively at this pricing level, we have 16.72 million shares. I don't look at notional. To me, notional is just, it doesn't give me any insight because price is constantly changing. So as a ticker changes from being $300 as a share traded down to, 150 because it's been cut in half, the price, the notional behind this, the dark pool value does nothing for me. It never has. I always focus on shares because I can say, okay, this share lot is a lot. Price is always going to fluctuate and change, but getting a good relationship with the number of shares traded on an individual ticker to me is a little bit more important than just like the notional because millions are millions are millions, right? So this evening we had quite a large number of signature prints. So I'm just kind of going to give a baseline here at 374.13. We had 16.72 million. And I do like to kind of side note some things. We had 53 signature prints, 13.6 million share volume, plus what we had after hours in yesterday's, because remember, a lot of this starts the evening prior and it gets recorded to the tape today. So yesterday we had 3.12 mil vol. So that way I can kind of get a breakdown because to have this large of signature prints in the middle of nothing, to be honest, and by that I mean typically we will see larger size on OPEX. Yes, we're ahead of CPI, but we still haven't necessarily seen that before. So this is a little bit different of volume. And so I kind of want to like add some context to that just so I can follow up. And I like to make this a lot more important. Actually, let me add this extra thick because this is actually where we have the volume. Phantom prints can be 1 share, can be 15 shares, can be 500,000 shares. We've seen all of it hit before. Again, those are outside of where the current pricing range is. We don't really know how they're able to do that or why they are doing that. We just know through study that it has been an area where price is attracted to. But when I talk about signature prints, that is where you have a very, very large concentration. When you look at SPY, that's a lot of volume to have 16 million, 18 million, 19 million. So those are your bigger levels of volume by price. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to my chart. Just wanted to be able to show that process of what I do when I see these larger levels. And This is taking us pretty far below. I'm going to go take us on a 4 hour. And I just kind of want to show where you've had some larger concentration below. And we don't typically see this much size. And so I had already mentioned the activity and the volume that we had up here at the 384.80. And again, I'm looking at the white, the 384.82 or the 384.59. That's a lot of activity. And we've got price action above that. Also have some larger levels below us as well at the 374.13. So honestly, what I am looking at, I think we have a little more potential for some upside in SPY just by going with the Phantom Prince is 396.81. That's not very far off from us. It is from 1031. It's not that far from where we've currently been. A little activity up here also at 407.24. What I don't like is this range between. This is like almost $9. I don't like to see that. What I would like to see is that we start to see some Phantom Prints come back in, and we will. Some Phantom Prints come back in that kind of give us some signaling if we are exhausting out to the upside, or we start to see some staggering going back in upside, or we start to see some downside. So extremely vague. I know I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't give you anything that's better than that. But if we are going to go downside, I think we will see more pricing action come in. However, I think it may be delayed if we start to see that come in, because that's kind of been the MO of what we've seen with previous Phantom Prints. Again, remember, a lot of the stuff that we hit this week was stuff that came in 2 weeks ago, 1031, 1026. So again, remember, the time frame is the element that you don't have. Please don't get excited if you see somebody posting about a Phantom Print that's way up or way down, and really look at it in context. But I really encourage everybody to get this information on your chart, because you can really start to see where trends evolve, to where stuff has shifted. A lot of times before, we were hitting these a lot quicker. It seems like we've been at least a week or two delayed. We saw that downside. We're now seeing that upside. So just kind of wanting to add a little bit more insight for those that are following the Phantom Prints. I definitely appreciate you taking the time to check this out. And if you're interested in BlockBox stocks, there will be a 20% off discount code if you want to be able to get this information yourself in real time and be able to search this independently. I appreciate your time. Have a good night.